Welcome back to SecretSpool's Twisted Tale Wednesday. I'm Cody, and tonight's story is the kind that settles into your thoughts long after the last line is spoken. Some stories are about shadows on the wall or footsteps in empty rooms, but this one is about a knock at the door and the impossible moment when the person standing on the other side looks exactly like you. If you're listening at night, maybe make sure your own doors are locked. Settle in, keep the lights low, but not too low. Here we go. When I look back now, the very first thing that returns to me isn't the fear or the confusion or even the impossible truth of what happened. It's the smell of candle wax. Kate had 5 different candles burning: vanilla, pine, burnt sugar, something floral, something citrus, and the mixture hovered in the air like a warm fog as we sat around her coffee table, eating takeout noodles and teasing each other about cheating at Uno. It was supposed to be a simple night in, a calm, easy hangout after a long week, but the neighborhood outside felt unnaturally still, the kind of stillness that makes every tiny sound stand out: the hum of the refrigerator, the soft static between words, even the way the house seemed to settle deeper into itself. In hindsight, it felt like the night was preparing us for something none of us could have understood. We were mid-conversation about weekend plans when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, clean, precise, and just forceful enough to stop the room cold. Brandon straightened halfway off the couch, his expression shifting from relaxed to alert, while Kate paused mid-sentence, as if someone had pressed a mute button on her thoughts. "Expecting someone?" Brandon asked. I answered too quickly, no, even though it wasn't my house. Something about the knock felt targeted, like whoever was on the other side had come specifically for me. When it came again, with the exact same rhythm, Lila rolled her eyes, stood up, and said she'd check, thinking it was probably a delivery mistake. She flicked the porch light switch, and it flickered twice before settling on a weak glow. Through the frosted glass, we saw a figure, a tall, unmoving shadow, standing perfectly centered in front of the door. Same height as me. Same build. It was only a silhouette, but something inside me tightened, like a warning whispered directly to my nerves. When Lila opened the door a few inches, she froze. Her hand stayed gripping the edge of the door, but she didn't lean forward or speak. She just stared. She called Brandon over without looking away, and when he stepped beside her, his confusion turned instantly into something heavier, fear mixed with disbelief. By the time I reached the entryway, I already had a sense of what I was about to see. But knowing something and seeing it aren't the same. The man standing on the porch looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same haircut, same slightly hunched shoulders, even the faint dark circles under the eyes. He smiled when he saw me, like greeting an old friend. "Hey," he said casually, "why'd you change the locks?" It was my voice, tone, cadence, everything. My breath caught in my throat. I slammed the door without thinking. The sound echoed through the entire house. Kate jumped. Lila grabbed my arm, asking what was wrong. Brandon immediately locked the deadbolt, his hands shaking more than he wanted us to notice. For a few long seconds after I slammed the door, none of us moved or even breathed normally. The apartment felt smaller somehow, like the walls had leaned in a little without making a sound. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, loud and unfamiliar, and even the refrigerator seemed hesitant, its steady hum dipping before climbing back to its usual rhythm. Lila's fingers dug into my arm, and Brandon kept his eyes fixed on the door, as if expecting it to bulge inward. The air felt wrong, not just tense, but watchful, as though the house itself was waiting to see what we would do next. 3 slow knocks followed, not angry, not desperate, patient, intentional, like he had all the time in the world. Brandon called the police while we all stood listening. We heard no footsteps, no movement, no shifting of weight, just the knocks. The house felt smaller with every passing second. When the officers arrived 20 minutes later, they found nothing. The porch was empty, the air undisturbed, no footprints, no signs of anyone leaving. One of the officers asked if I'd been drinking. Another asked if we were playing some kind of joke. Their disbelief only made the fear settle deeper into our bones. We tried to salvage the night afterward, but none of us could focus. Kate went to bed early. Lila curled against me on the couch, stiff with unease. Brandon stayed awake, staring at the dark TV screen like it might warn him if anything changed. And then, from the back door, came a single knock. Soft, almost polite, but unmistakable. The walk toward the back door felt strangely long, like the hallway had stretched without warning. Each step echoed louder than it should have, bouncing off the walls in a slow, heavy rhythm. The overhead light flickered once as we passed beneath it, not enough to go out, but enough to make the shadows shiver along the edges of the hall. I kept waiting to hear footsteps on the other side of the door, or breathing, or even the faint rustle of clothing. But there was nothing, just a deliberate silence that felt too intentional to be natural, as if the darkness itself was holding its breath. We moved toward the kitchen with the kind of hesitant caution you use when approaching a wild animal. The back window above the sink was dark, offering nothing but a faint reflection of ourselves. Brandon flipped on the porch light and it flickered to life, revealing someone standing just outside the glass door. It was me. Again, same jacket, same shoes, same expression, but the smile he wore now was different, wider, stretched just enough to betray something unnatural beneath it. He placed his hand on the glass, fingers splayed, matching my own palm shape perfectly, down to the faint scar across the knuckle. He leaned closer until his breath fogged the glass, then mouthed the same 3 words as before. "Let me in." Slow, deliberate, like a command disguised as a request. Brandon yanked down the blinds and grabbed his phone. But before he could dial, the kitchen bulb flickered violently. Then the entire house went dark. The refrigerator hum vanished, the heater clicked off. Even the ambient noise of the night seemed to drop away. A soft, dragging sound brushed the outside of the door, the unmistakable rasp of a palm sliding downward in a slow, determined motion. Lila clutched my arm, trembling. As we backed away from the kitchen, a soft crack echoed somewhere deeper in the house, like wood shifting under a sudden weight. A faint vibration followed beneath our feet, subtle but unmistakable, as if someone had brushed a hand against the other side of the drywall or dragged their fingers along a support beam. Lila whispered my name, but it sounded distant, muffled by the thickening air. For a moment I felt watched from 2 different angles at once. Somewhere behind us in the hallway and somewhere above us in the dark ceiling. We backed into the hallway just as a shadow moved behind the living room curtains. My outline, my stance, my profile, the fabric pulled inward for a split second before releasing like something, like someone had pressed their face to it. Brandon whispered that we needed to check the breaker, and none of us had a better idea. We followed him down into the basement, the flashlight beam jittering across exposed beams and concrete walls. The breaker was already flipped to on. Brandon reached toward it anyway, but before he could touch it, a violent slam upstairs shook the ceiling. Dust drifted down like gray snow. On our way to the stairs, I caught a glimpse of myself in the dark window above the sink, except the posture wasn't quite mine. The reflection's shoulders were too stiff, its head tilted at an angle I wasn't making. For a frozen second, the reflection didn't follow my movement at all. Then it snapped into sync with a jolt, almost like it remembered it was supposed to mirror me. My breath caught, and Brandon had to tug my sleeve to get me moving down the steps. He sprinted back upstairs to find the back door wide open and cold night air flooding in. Kate stood in the hallway, pale and shaking, whispering, "He's inside." Wet footprints led from the door to the living room doorway, where I stood, staring back at myself. Blank expression, tilted head, no breath, no blink. Brandon grabbed a lamp and yelled for him to stay back, but the thing only smiled, a small, sorrowful smile that made my chest tighten with a fear I didn't know how to name. Then it lunged. The lamp crashed. Kate screamed, furniture toppled, and Brandon's voice cut off mid-shout. When the chaos ended, I was standing over a still body, my body, or his. The police said the fingerprints matched mine. Lila said they found me standing over myself. And now, days later, soft knocks echo through my walls. My reflection lags a fraction behind me, and I've found a key in my jacket that doesn't belong to me. I don't know whether he let me in or I let him in, and I don't know which side of the door I'm truly on. If tonight's story pulled you in, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and join me again next Wednesday for another twisted tale. Sleep lightly tonight, just in case something knocks.